several top WWE stars get their names changed. Rumours about Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE status. Was John Cena meant to be a babyface right now? And more. I'm Big Frickin' Dirty Ollie Davis, and this is the Big Frickin' Dirty WrestleTalk news.
Support WrestleTalk!
Today marks 410 days since Vince McMahon resigned from WWE, but who's counting? In the year plus since, Triple H has thankfully dropped almost all of the ridiculous Vince-based creative ideas from his 40-year reign of terror. Characters and stories now make long-term sense because scripts aren't frequently rewritten hours before the show goes on air. The camera no longer zooms in and out and shakes it all about whenever someone's hitting their opponent with a chair. And Chad Gable has now broken away from his Shorty G gimmick by becoming a serious wrestling machine. But there has been another hangover from the Vince era. Quite a few people still have silly names. Seth Rollins, for instance, was listed on WWE's official roster page as Seth Frickin' Rollins. Arguably a fine nickname for someone to give you on your entrance or in a catchphrase, but to put it in the official name feels outdated now WWE has a more realistic, sports-based presentation. But it seems Roman Reigns beat up Seth so hard following Raw's main event steel cage match, he beat the frickin' out of him. After this week's Raw aired, it's been noticed that WWE has dropped the frickin' from Seth Rollins' name on their roster page, which you can see in this picture where Seth is posing as the Fonzie Bear in his official render. Hey, waka waka. This follows the frickin' nickname not appearing on Seth's name bar graphic on Raw over the last several weeks. And he's not the only one, as Big Bronson Reed and Dirty Dominic Mysterio have also both had their nicknames dropped on WWE.com. So they're now only listed as regular-sized Bronson Reed and relatively clean Dominic Mysterio. If you look through the whole roster page, Shinsuke Nakamura is still listed on there, despite some rumors saying he's leaving the company. Nakamura was barely seen on WWE TV last year. Despite wrestling regularly in dark matches or at live events, he wrestled 6 matches on Raw in the first few months of 2024, but then wouldn't be seen again on TV until November on SmackDown. There, he debuted his new Wayward Samurai gimmick and shockingly beat LA Knight for the US title at Survivor Series the following week. He's only had 4 matches since, one of which was last Friday's episode of SmackDown, where he lost the US title back to LA Knight. It was an unceremonious end to Nakamura's pretty nothing title reign. Later that weekend, rumors began to spread on social media that PW Tortured said Nakamura was set to leave WWE in the near future. But the source of that report, Wade Keller, then revealed that's not what he said, and that had been misquoted in a social media post. Fightful backed Keller up, reporting that they hadn't heard anything about Nakamura leaving WWE. But then the Wrestling Observer entered the chat. When the rumors started going around, the Wrestling Observer reached out to WWE for comment. When that story first broke, I immediately asked WWE, and they immediately got back to me. What they said was false was that Nakamura was leaving. But the Wrestling Observer noted there was still some uncertainty around the situation. He tried to clarify if Nakamura's title loss on Friday was his final appearance for WWE, but WWE didn't respond to that question, even though they did answer the Nakamura leaving one. The speculation here, so get those pinches of salt ready, is that Nakamura wants to return to Japan, maybe to take part in his former rival Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement year. Despite being under contract with WWE, Nakamura has been allowed to wrestle in Japan twice over the last 2 years, which even under the Triple H regime is still pretty rare for a main roster guy. Nakamura wrestled for Pro Wrestling Noah on their New Year's Day shows in January this year and back in 2023, where he took part in the Great Muta's retirement tour. Noah reportedly has a working relationship with WWE though, which saw NXT stars Josh Briggs and Tavion Heights wrestle in their N1 tournament last year. If Nakamura was part of Tanahashi's retirement tour, that would be with New Japan Pro Wrestling, who are affiliated with AEW. But while WWE might be blocking Nakamura from wrestling elsewhere, their new ID scheme wants indie promotions to start booking their developmental talent right away. Please! anyone. We need you to book these wrestlers. Last October, WWE announced their new ID system, which would support indie wrestlers with training, mentorship, and money, providing a more clear pathway from learning to be a wrestler all the way through to getting signed with WWE. WWE partnered with several wrestling schools as part of this, which included Cody Rhodes's, Seth Rollins's, and Booker T's. Then last week, WWE debuted their latest wrestling brand, Evolve. This was run by Gabe Sapolsky, one of the minds behind the ID system, which would feature Performance Center trainees and those signed to ID contracts. Triple H even announced 2 new championships for the brand, a men and women's ID titles, which could also be defended in indie promotions around the country. Some see this as an exciting new pathway from grassroots wrestling into the top of the profession. Others, however, see it as WWE's latest way to control every aspect of the wrestling industry and muscle in on indie promotions, just like how Vince did when he was killing the territory system. Especially if WWE will start to exercise creative control on their ID wrestlers having to win and booking their title in other people's promotion. But what I don't think anyone banked on was how desperate the WWE ID Twitter would get. On the 9th of March, it posted a reminder to all independent wrestling promoters: you can book all WWE ID talent in your promotion. This includes all WWE ID talent who are getting exposure on WWE Evolve. Contact talent individually for booking info. And then, 2 days later, it posted again, with all the energy of me texting Megan, just checking you saw my last message because it's been 3 hours. I can see the blue ticks. In fact, I actually saw you start typing at one point, but you still haven't replied! Hey independent wrestling promoters, the fans have spoken. They want WWE ID prospects on your indie shows. Look at the likes. Flame emoji, look, point down, please, look at the likes emoji. Then they posted GCW and FSW, the names of 2 indie wrestling promotions, without actually tagging them. Or they just started typing random letters and hit publish. What do you think is going on with WWE's ID system? Let me know in the comments down below. Look at those likes. Speaking of desperate attempts at promotion, have you checked out patreon.com/WrestleTalk? Please! If you sign up, you can watch an exclusive episode of Tables, Lists, and Chairs, where Luke Sullivan and Tempest count down the 10 best WrestleMania stages of all time, which went live over the weekend. And also, if you sign up now, you'll be able to watch the first episode of the brand new WWE 2K25 series of Monday Night War on early access this Friday. That's patreon.com/WrestleTalk. John Cena shockingly turned heel, like me and JBL have been saying he is for like 20 years now, at WWE's Elimination Chamber PLE. Some, like The Rock's head writer Brian Gewitz, claim this has been the plan all along. Others, like the Wrestling Observer, have reported the original plan was for Cena to turn heel in the main event of WrestleMania, siding then with The Rock to beat Cody and win his record-breaking 17th world title. We'll likely never know the full truth, mostly because The Rock will flood us with PR documentaries about how he knew everything in advance and he's a genius. But WWE's latest Cena merchandise release might provide an interesting clue, because it all seems to be based around him being a babyface. Ahead of heel John's first TV appearance on next week's Raw in Belgium, WWE have released the John Cena Farewell Tour Brussels collection, which still kind of presents him as a noble babyface, with his slogan "Never Give Up" on some socks, even if the product description does mention buying one doesn't require selling your soul to The Rock. It implies Cena's heel turn could have been moved forward, and the merchandise strategy around his European tour dates were based on him being a good guy. From good/bad guys to Paul Heyman guys, though. Triple H has told The Hollywood Reporter that Heyman has a new mentoree. Bron Breakker is a young guy, incredibly athletic, great character, he's a sponge. I have Heyman spend a lot of time with him to help develop him with his promos, to help develop his character, to help push him in a direction. Then Paul talks to me and talks to the writers about where do we want to take that, and then he's the conduit for where we want to go to that talent. Breakker has previously discussed working with Heyman on screen in the future, saying it could happen at some point down the line. The next big things, however, are wrestling in NXT. And last night's Roadblock special from Madison Square Garden saw one of the most impactful booking decisions of recent times. A TNA act actually won on NXT TV. Yes, the Hardys beat Fraxium to retain their TNA tag titles, likely building a rematch for Fraxium's NXT tag titles, but the biggest news really happened in the main event. A winner-takes-all match of the NXT Women's Champion Julia versus Women's North American Champion Stephanie Vaquer, where Vaquer won, making her the first woman to be a double singles champion in NXT history. The reported real reason behind this is because Julia is working through an injury and she needs to take time off. Now go watch us count down the 10 best WrestleMania matches of all time in the brand new episode of Tables, Lists and Chairs by clicking the video on screen now.